Sarah Martinez had always dreamed of serving her country. Growing up in a small Texas town, she watched her father polish his military medals every Sunday morning, listening to his stories about brotherhood, honor, and sacrifice. When she turned 18. Despite her mother's tears and her father's mixed emotions, Sarah enlisted in the Army. She was determined to prove that she belonged in a world dominated by men. Basic training was brutal. The drill sergeants showed no mercy, pushing every recruit to their breaking point. Sarah endured the grueling physical challenges, the sleep deprivation, and the constant mental pressure. She witnessed several recruits quit and return home, but Sarah refused to give up. Her small frame belied her incredible determination and strength. Night after night, she pushed through pain and exhaustion, driven by a deep desire to honor her family's military legacy. During her training, Sarah met Commander James Harrison, a decorated officer known for his strict discipline and unwavering standards. He had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and was respected throughout the base for his tactical brilliance and leadership skills. Commander Harrison was tough on all recruits, but he seemed particularly challenging toward the female soldiers. He believed that the military was no place for women and made his opinions known through his harsh training methods and dismissive comments. Sarah quickly became one of the top performers in her unit. She excelled in marksmanship, tactical planning, and physical fitness tests. Her fellow recruits began looking up to her as an unofficial leader, someone who could motivate them during the darkest moments of training. Despite her success, Commander Harrison remained skeptical of her abilities and often singled her out for additional challenges and criticism. The tension between Sarah and Commander Harrison grew with each passing week. He would assign her extra duties, longer guard shifts, and more demanding physical tests. Other recruits noticed the unfair treatment, but military protocol prevented them from speaking out against a superior officer. Sarah endured the harassment in silence, channeling her frustration into even better performance and stronger determination. One evening, after a particularly brutal training exercise, Sarah sat alone in the barracks writing a letter to her younger sister back home. She described the challenges she faced but emphasized her commitment to completing her training successfully. She wrote about wanting to be a role model for other young women who dreamed of military service. Her words reflected a maturity and purpose that went far beyond her 19 years. As graduation from basic training approached, Sarah knew that she had proven herself as a capable soldier. However, she also understood that her real test would come when she received her first assignment. Commander Harrison's final evaluation would determine her future in the military, and she suspected that he would not make things easy for her. Despite the uncertainty, Sarah remained focused on her goal of becoming the best soldier she could possibly be. Sarah's first deployment came sooner than expected. She was assigned to a forward operating base in Afghanistan, where Commander Harrison had been transferred as the base commander. When Sarah learned about the assignment, she realized that her challenges were far from over. The base was located in a dangerous region where Taliban attacks occurred regularly, and every soldier needed to be ready for combat at any moment. The living conditions at the base were harsh. Sandstorms regularly swept through the compound, covering everything in a fine layer of dust. The temperature reached over 120 degrees during the day and dropped dramatically at night. Fresh water was limited and proper meals were rare. Sarah adapted quickly to the difficult environment, but she noticed that Commander Harrison continued to treat her differently from the male soldiers. During her first month at the base, Sarah volunteered for the most dangerous patrol missions. She wanted to prove her worth in actual combat situations rather than just training exercises. Her fellow soldiers began to respect her courage and reliability. When enemy fire erupted during patrols, Sarah remained calm under pressure and demonstrated excellent tactical decision-making. She saved several soldiers' lives through her quick thinking and accurate shooting. Despite Sarah's proven performance in combat, Commander Harrison refused to acknowledge her contributions. He assigned her to kitchen duty and supply management instead of frontline missions. The other soldiers began to question the commander's decisions, as Sarah was clearly one of their most capable fighters. The morale in her unit started to decline as they witnessed the unfair treatment of their comrade. One particularly dangerous night, the base came under heavy attack from a coordinated Taliban assault. Rockets and mortars exploded throughout the compound while enemy fighters attempted to breach the perimeter walls. Sarah was supposed to remain in the supply bunker according to Commander Harrison's orders, but she could hear her fellow soldiers calling for help over the radio communication system. Against direct orders, Sarah grabbed her weapon and rushed to join the defense of the base. She positioned herself at a critical choke point where enemy fighters were attempting to enter the compound. For 3 hours, she held her position against overwhelming odds, allowing other soldiers to evacuate wounded comrades and establish better defensive positions. Her accurate rifle fire and strategic positioning prevented the enemy from overrunning the base. When morning came and the attack finally ended, the base had suffered minimal casualties thanks to the heroic actions of several soldiers, including Sarah. However, instead of recognizing her bravery, Commander Harrison was furious that she had disobeyed his direct orders. He called her into his office and threatened to court-martial her for insubordination. Sarah stood silently as he shouted, knowing that she had made the right decision regardless of the consequences she might face. The weeks following the attack created a tense atmosphere at the base. Other soldiers had witnessed Sarah's heroism during the battle, and word spread quickly about Commander Harrison's harsh treatment of her afterward. Many of the veteran soldiers began questioning their commander's leadership decisions and his apparent prejudice against female soldiers. The unit's cohesion started to fracture under the weight of this injustice. Sarah continued to perform her duties with unwavering professionalism, but the emotional toll was becoming evident. She had risked her life to save her fellow soldiers, yet faced punishment instead of recognition. During quiet moments, she questioned whether her military career was worth the constant struggle against discrimination and unfair treatment. However, her commitment to her fellow soldiers kept her focused on the mission ahead. Commander Harrison implemented even stricter rules, specifically targeting Sarah's activities. She was forbidden from participating in patrol missions and was assigned only to administrative tasks within the base compound. The other soldiers noticed these restrictions and began losing respect for their commander. Several senior sergeants approached Harrison privately to express their concerns about his treatment of Sarah, but he dismissed their complaints and warned them against questioning his authority. One evening, while Sarah was organizing supply inventories, she discovered some disturbing discrepancies in the equipment logs. Large quantities of ammunition, medical supplies, and food rations were unaccounted for, suggesting possible theft or black market sales. Sarah realized that someone with high-level access was selling military supplies to local contractors, potentially putting soldiers' lives at risk by reducing their available resources. Sarah faced a difficult moral dilemma. She suspected that Commander Harrison might be involved in the supply theft, but she had no concrete proof of his participation. Accusing a superior officer without solid evidence could end her military career and result in serious legal consequences. However, allowing the theft to continue could endanger the lives of every soldier on the base if they ran short of critical supplies during future attacks. After careful consideration, Sarah decided to document everything she had discovered and report her findings to the base's intelligence officer. She spent several nights secretly photographing inventory records and creating detailed reports of the missing supplies. Her investigation revealed a complex network of corruption involving multiple personnel at the base, including some high-ranking officers who were supposed to prevent such activities. The intelligence officer was initially skeptical of Sarah's accusations, especially given her recent conflicts with Commander Harrison. However, the documentation she provided was thorough and compelling. The officer promised to conduct a discreet investigation, while warning Sarah about the potential consequences of making false accusations against superior officers. Sarah understood the risks but felt confident that she had uncovered genuine criminal activity that threatened the safety of her fellow soldiers. The investigation into the supply theft moved slowly and carefully. Military police conducted discreet interviews with personnel who had access to the supply areas, while auditors reviewed months of inventory records and financial transactions. Sarah continued her regular duties while waiting anxiously for the results of the investigation. She noticed that Commander Harrison seemed increasingly paranoid and suspicious of everyone around him. During this tense period, Sarah received devastating news from home. Her younger brother, who had followed her example by enlisting in the Marines, was killed in action during a mission in Iraq. The loss hit Sarah like a physical blow, as she had been her brother's inspiration and mentor throughout his military training. She blamed herself for encouraging him to join the military and struggled with overwhelming guilt and grief. Commander Harrison showed no sympathy for Sarah's loss. When she requested emergency leave to attend her brother's funeral, he denied the request and assigned her additional duties to keep her occupied. The other soldiers were shocked by his callous treatment of a grieving sister who had lost her brother in service to their country. This incident further damaged Harrison's reputation and credibility among the troops under his command. Sarah's emotional state deteriorated as she processed her grief while dealing with continued harassment from her commander. She began having nightmares about her brother's death and struggled to concentrate during her daily duties. Several fellow soldiers offered their support and comfort, creating an informal network of care around her during this difficult time. Their kindness provided some relief from her pain and isolation. The supply theft investigation finally yielded results that shocked everyone at the base. The evidence revealed that Commander Harrison was indeed the mastermind behind the corruption scheme, working with several civilian contractors to sell military supplies on the black market. He had been using his position of authority to cover up the thefts and intimidate anyone who might discover his criminal activities. When the military police arrived to arrest Commander Harrison, he realized that his career and freedom were about to end. In desperation, he attempted to blame Sarah for the thefts, claiming that she had been stealing supplies and falsifying records to cover her tracks. He argued that her accusations against him were simply an attempt to deflect suspicion from her own criminal activities. However, the evidence against Harrison was overwhelming, and the investigators had already verified Sarah's innocence through their thorough review of security footage and financial records. Harrison's attempt to frame Sarah only highlighted his desperation and lack of character. As the military police placed him under arrest, Sarah watched from across the compound, feeling a mixture of vindication and sadness that a decorated officer had fallen so far from the ideals he was supposed to represent. Following Commander Harrison's arrest, a new commanding officer was assigned to the base. Colonel Patricia Williams arrived with an impressive record of service and a reputation for fair leadership. She immediately began reviewing personnel files and conducting individual meetings with soldiers to understand the situation she had inherited. When Colonel Williams met with Sarah, she was impressed by her courage in exposing the corruption despite facing personal consequences. The base atmosphere improved dramatically under Colonel Williams's leadership. She implemented new policies to prevent corruption and established clear channels for soldiers to report problems without fear of retaliation. Sarah found herself finally being treated as an equal member of the team, with her skills and contributions properly recognized and valued by her commanding officer and fellow soldiers. However, Sarah's personal struggles with grief over her brother's death continued to affect her performance and emotional well-being. She had never properly processed her loss due to the ongoing conflicts at the base, and the delayed grief was now hitting her with full force. Colonel Williams noticed Sarah's struggles and arranged for her to receive counseling support from the base's mental health services. Through counseling sessions, Sarah began to understand that her brother had made his own choice to serve in the military, and that his death was not her fault. She learned healthy coping strategies for dealing with grief and survivor's guilt. The counselor also helped her recognize that her own service was honoring her brother's memory and continuing their family's tradition of military service. As Sarah's emotional healing progressed, she became increasingly focused on helping other soldiers who faced discrimination or unfair treatment. She volunteered to serve as a mentor for new female recruits and worked with Colonel Williams to develop better support systems for all soldiers struggling with various challenges. Her experiences had taught her the importance of speaking up for others who might not have the courage to advocate for themselves. During this period of personal growth and healing, Sarah made a decision that would define the rest of her military career. She decided to get a tattoo that would commemorate her brother's sacrifice and remind her of the principles that guided her service. The tattoo design incorporated military symbols, her brother's initials, and meaningful words about honor, courage, and sacrifice. Sarah chose to place the tattoo on her back, where it would normally be hidden by her uniform. The tattoo artist was a local Afghan man who had worked with many American soldiers, and he understood the deep significance of what Sarah was asking him to create. The detailed artwork took several sessions to complete, and each session was an emotional experience as Sarah reflected on her brother's life and her own journey as a soldier. 6 months after Commander Harrison's arrest, Sarah's deployment was coming to an end. She had grown significantly as both a soldier and a person during her time at the forward operating base. The base had become a model of effective leadership under Colonel Williams, and Sarah had played a crucial role in that transformation through her courage and dedication to doing what was right. Colonel Williams recommended Sarah for promotion and several military honors, including a commendation for her role in exposing the supply theft corruption. Sarah was also being considered for admission to officer training school, which would allow her to become a commissioned officer and take on greater leadership responsibilities within the military structure. As Sarah prepared for her return to the United States, she learned that she would be participating in a formal ceremony to recognize several soldiers for their exceptional service during the deployment. The ceremony would be attended by high-ranking military officials, including some generals who were visiting the base to review operations and meet with the troops. The day of the ceremony arrived with typical military precision and formality. Soldiers gathered in their dress uniforms while distinguished visitors took their places on the reviewing stand. Sarah felt nervous about receiving public recognition after months of being treated unfairly. But she was also proud of what she had accomplished despite the challenges she had faced. However, the ceremony took an unexpected turn when one of the visiting generals specifically asked to meet with Sarah privately after the formal presentations. General Robert Morrison had heard about her case through official military channels and wanted to personally acknowledge her service and sacrifice. He was known throughout the military as a leader who cared deeply about the welfare of all soldiers under his command. During their private meeting, General Morrison asked Sarah to describe her experiences at the base and her perspective on the challenges facing female soldiers in combat roles. Sarah spoke honestly about the discrimination she had faced and the institutional barriers that prevented women from fully contributing their skills and talents to military operations. She also discussed the importance of strong leadership in creating an environment where all soldiers could succeed. General Morrison was impressed by Sarah's maturity, wisdom, and commitment to improving the military for future generations of soldiers. He offered her several career opportunities, including a position on his staff, where she could work on policy issues affecting military personnel. Sarah was honored by the offer, but requested time to consider her options carefully before making such an important decision about her future career path. The final day at the base arrived with mixed emotions for Sarah. She had formed strong bonds with her fellow soldiers and had helped create positive changes that would benefit future personnel stationed there. As she packed her belongings, Sarah reflected on how much she had grown during her deployment and how her experiences had shaped her understanding of leadership, courage, and personal integrity. Colonel Williams organized a farewell gathering for Sarah and the other soldiers who were rotating back to the United States. During the informal ceremony, many soldiers spoke about Sarah's positive impact on their unit and her courage in standing up for what was right despite facing personal consequences. The respect and admiration from her peers meant more to Sarah than any official recognition or medal. As the gathering was winding down, Colonel Williams made an unexpected announcement. She revealed that the military had decided to name the base's new leadership training center after Sarah's brother, honoring his sacrifice and the values he had represented during his military service. Sarah was deeply moved by this gesture and felt that her brother's memory would continue to inspire future generations of soldiers. In a moment of overwhelming emotion and gratitude, Sarah made a spontaneous decision that surprised everyone present. She asked Colonel Williams if she could share something personal with the group that had supported her through the most difficult period of her life. With permission granted, Sarah stepped forward and began to remove her military jacket and shirt. The room fell silent as Sarah revealed the elaborate tattoo covering her back. The artwork depicted military symbols intertwined with her brother's initials and quotes about honor and sacrifice. Angels' wings spread across her shoulders, while a detailed military cemetery scene honored all fallen soldiers. The centerpiece was a portrait of her brother in his Marine uniform, surrounded by American flags and symbols representing their family's military heritage. Sarah turned slowly so everyone could see the full design, while she explained the meaning behind each element of the tattoo. She spoke about her brother's dreams of military service, his courage in combat, and the values that had guided both of their lives. The tattoo represented her commitment to honoring his memory through continued service and dedication to helping other soldiers succeed. The room remained completely silent as Sarah finished speaking and began putting her uniform back on. Then spontaneously, every person in the room began applauding, creating a thunderous ovation that lasted several minutes. Many soldiers had tears in their eyes as they realized the depth of Sarah's sacrifice and the strength it had taken for her to persevere through discrimination, grief, and institutional challenges. Colonel Williams approached Sarah with visible emotion and quietly said that she had never witnessed such courage and dedication from any soldier under her command. The colonel admitted that Sarah's willingness to share such a personal part of herself had taught everyone present about the true meaning of service, sacrifice, and brotherhood within the military family. That evening, as Sarah boarded the transport plane that would take her home, she carried with her not only the memories of a successful deployment, but also the knowledge that she had made a lasting difference. Her courage in exposing corruption, her perseverance through personal tragedy, and her commitment to helping other soldiers had created ripple effects that would continue long after her departure. Sarah looked forward to her next assignment, knowing that she would continue fighting for the values represented by the tattoo she wore with pride.